Hello. In today's demo, I'll be showcasing on how to save lives using contextual firmware update. Uh, Before we dive in, I'll be utilizing or focusing on something known as AQI, which is Air Quality Index. This is a number used by various agencies to indicate how polluted the air is or how polluted the atmosphere currently is for various geographical regions. The AQI itself is demarcated into various levels as seen here, with 0 to 50 being good, 51 to 100 being moderate, 151 onwards being unhealthy, and 300 and above being hazardous. For this demo, I'll be using APIs provided by AirVisual. Here is a map where they have shown the live at present AQI levels in various geographical regions. And as you can see on the left over here, towards the west, United States is pretty much covered in green, which with few yellows and oranges thrown in, which means the AQI levels are really good and at a low level, healthy level. But towards the east, as you can see, we have lots of reds, oranges, and yellows, indicating that the AQI levels are high, which means it's unhealthy and even hazardous. So for the example, let's take a scenario where we have a user who's traveling from a place with high or healthy levels of AQI to unhealthy levels of AQI, so to speak. Let's take two places in the United States itself to start with. I see a red peeking out over there. That's Oakville, Washington. And let's take a place from California. I see a 4. That's really healthy. Fresno, California. So we have our user traveling from Fresno, California to Oakville, Washington. We hit on go. And what you're seeing here is a dashboard, and we have our car here with the user on its journey, who is moving really slow. Let's speed him up. Speeding him up further to get him going. Okay, so over here on the top, what you're seeing is the overlay of the route that our user is taking. Over here is supposed to be the live version of the path he is on. It would be a little more detailed, but at the speed at which he is going, the maps is unable to keep up. And on the right side over here, we have images provided by Google Earth's API. And on the top over here, the region marked as the car dashboard, we can see the details of the user and where he's headed. So over here you can see the AQI is showing as 155 for the destination, that is Oakville in Washington. The current temperature is 13. We have the UV index, the humidity, the wind speed is missing. Sometimes the data is available, sometimes it's not. Over here we have the distance he is currently covered out of the total distance to be covered. The speed he's going at, we have sped him up really fast, so he covers the distance by the time we are done with this demo. We see the car he's driving, the latitude, longitude of the destination he's headed to, and also the firmware version he's currently got on his car. So in this particular scenario, since the user is headed from a place with healthy levels of AQI to a place where the AQI levels are bordering on unhealthy, what the OEMs can do is offer him a firmware upgrade to calibrate and reconfigure his car in such a way that the emissions produced by his car are on a lower level to help maintain or to help reduce the pollution provided by his car. Let's slow him down. Now as he's entering into Washington, if our user chooses to do so, he can check for a firmware, and it notes that the AQI levels are high, and if he wants to, he can click yes on upgrading the firmware, clicks on OK, the message comes updating the firmware, and as you can see from 3.0 we have a firmware upgrade. Now it's at 3.1. Now the user moves on towards his destination, which is in Oakville, Washington, knowing well that his car is not contributing towards the emissions or the pollution in the area. In such scenarios, the OEMs can have a suite or a library of various versions of firmware that recalibrates or reconfigures the vehicle for any set destination or maybe certain levels of AQI. Let's say you're headed to a place with hazardous levels 350 or 300 and above levels of AQI. Maybe the OEM has a firmware that would make a trade-off between the power and the fuel efficiency in such a way that your car is really fuel efficient but reduces the power for a small duration of time that you are in the vicinity with a higher AQI. What I'm trying to say is that you can, or the OEMs can, provide firmwares to certain geographical areas with a high granularity. That makes geofencing possible with various parameters in mind. All you have to do is take a certain number and decide what's the ratio of the fuel efficiency versus the power that you would like to maintain with the vehicle such that the emissions are low. Now, the user has reached his destination as well. We can pause this. Now let's take another scenario with, let's see, as we noted earlier, we have a really high unhealthy and hazardous levels of AQI in the Asia Pacific region. Let's take a demo from, or let's run a demo from that area. Let's see. I see a plan which indicates Faridabad, Haryana. Okay, let's go with 352 Agra. It's a well-known place, home of Taj Mahal. Let's have someone going from Gwalior to Agra. So this part of the demo goes to show that contextual firmware update is not geographically limited. We all know that cars are available all over the world, and from the last count, we had the number of cars in India at 22.5 million. China is even higher. We have 172 million cars on the road right now in China, with 23.8 million cars registered in 2015 alone. We don't have the numbers for 2017 yet. So, as you can see, we are traveling from Gwalior to a place called Agra with an AQI level of 353, and our user is making his way over there. We see the temperature in the destination is 17. We have the latitude and the longitude of Agra over there. The current firmware version is again 3.0. Now, as the user about to cross the border over here, he can check for the firmware update to see if it's available. And he's crossing the border. Let's see, it's safe to do so, and we check for the firmware. It says the AQI levels are high and you can upgrade the firmware in the car. We click on OK. We get the updating firmware option. As you can see, the 3.0 is updated to 3.1, and the user is well on his way to his destination. Now, in the beginning of this demo, I'd mentioned that I'll be showcasing on how to save lives using contextual firmware update. Now, as I've shown in here with utilizing AQI, the same use case can also be applied in situations where there's a life-threatening situation, like let's say a natural disaster has hit a place. Let's say there's a flooding in a coastal region, a wildfire. Let's take the wildfire of Napa, for example. That's a recent situation and it's still fresh on our minds. There was a large-scale devastation caused by wildfire to property and life, loss of high number of life, and there was evacuation alerts set to residents of the area, and everyone was trying to get out of Napa and Sonoma area as soon as they could. So in such a scenario, as we all know, we just try to take our belongings, our loved ones, get into the car and get out of the place as soon as possible. And in doing so, we usually, or it's been seen that people get stuck on freeways as they're trying to evacuate, and it takes a long time for the evacuation to completely occur. In such a situation, OEMs could provide an update, a map, like a map update, saying that, hey, we see that you are in the such and such situation. Here's a map update for you to get to safety in the quickest and safest manner possible. And they can provide such various map updates to various groups of people, so that the group such that the citizens in that area are dispersed and they have multiple routes to get out of the harm's way in a safe manner. The firmware update can also be provided, and it's not just gasoline cars. If you think about it, it can also be for electric vehicles, where let's say you have consciously bought a mileage limited car, like let's say your battery capacity lets you drive 250 miles per one complete charge. Maybe the OEM can provide you with a firmware update removing a software limitation, or recalibrating and reconfiguring your vehicle such that your air conditioning or your infotainment system takes less power but provides more power to the motors to help you go the farther distance. And those are just a couple of the scenarios where contextual firmware update comes in real use, and I hope this demo has been helpful. Please do not hesitate to contact us with any questions you may have. Thank you.